Welcome back to Duck Stash, the University of Oregon show on Dash Sports. I'm Izzy LaRue here with Michael Strite. Let's get into everything Ducks football. So, Michael, as you can see from the title of the show, it's where to go from here. Where do the Ducks go from here after two back-to-back losses, the first time since 2018 where they lost back-to-back games? Is Tyler Shuck the problem, Michael?
Yeah, Izzy, I'm not sure that's too fair. We kind of just jumped right out starting into the show with is Tyler Shuck the problem? Look, he's not the problem. He's definitely not Justin Herbert. We know that. But he's also not holding Oregon back from something better or something greater either. Um, and he had a bad game, honestly. The Oregon offense had a bad game. The offensive line started to see some holes. And the Oregon, Tyler Shuck, he definitely has a turnover issue, and you're seeing it. But you're seeing this it's kind of the development of a young quarterback. You're seeing him maybe run more than he should, maybe not going to the ground and protecting the football quite the way. It's a game full of mistakes, and it's been a season full of mistakes that you can point out for Tyler Shuck, but he isn't holding Oregon back from something greater. And I don't think the fans should be sort of piling on Tyler Shuck as being the issue. What do you think, Izzy?
I mean, I've been saying it all season. He's been a quarterback. He shows some flashes. He's really athletic, more athletic than Anthony Brown. But I mean, I've really been thinking about this. Should I want them to start Anthony Brown, or should we keep going with Shuck? And the thing is, he's shown some great flashes, but the thing is, it's also on Joe Moorhead too. He's had some really questionable play calls, especially in that Cal game yesterday, where it seems like he should have ran the ball to the running back instead of making Shuck run the ball. And then sometimes I think it's just this RPO offense. They just really didn't have time to really implement it, get used to it, because it seems like also Shuck sometimes it's because it's an RPO offense, it's on the quarterback. Sometimes he holds on the ball when he should hand it off, and sometimes he should hand off the ball when he should actually run it. So it just seems like he needs to work on those decisions better. Joe Moorhead needs to have better play calls. I mean, they had that 1 4th and 1 play where they gave it to Verdell, who seemed like he's not the same as he was from before. And even as Chris Ball alluded, he said that was a bad play call, that they should have made a better play call. They thought that just because it was 4th and 1, they've been getting it all season, they would get it then. And that's not a good mindset to have. I mean, that you kind of see that mindset in the past 2 games against Oregon State and Cal, where they have this mindset of like, okay, we're 3-0. We're at the top of the Pac-12 North. We've been doing these things all season. It's just going to carry on. You can't get lackadaisical against teams that can play. You can't get lackadaisical against anyone in the Pac-12 because we've seen it before. The Pac-12, they love to eat each other alive. I don't know why, but this is the conference where it's really no one to take.
Yeah, the Pac-12 really loves to cannibalize itself. It's been a weird weekend of Pac-12 action. You wouldn't expect anything less than that. But with Tyler Shuck, again, I think he's the right man for this Oregon offense, for what Joe Moorhead is doing. I think he's definitely a good he's the kind of right build for what Joe Moorhead's doing, and you see that in the first couple of weeks. It's kind of weird to see how explosive, dynamic, and just unstoppable Oregon's offense was in the first 3 weeks of the season, including Oregon State. So the first 4 weeks of the season, and then now the offense has a stinker. All the way out here in week 5, it feels weird that now is the game where they're trying to figure things out and they're kind of stumped, which, I guess credit to the Cal defense for doing something creative. Um, the thing that gets me about Tyler Shuck, and I was yelling this at the TV while watching, is Oregon does have another quarterback in Anthony Brown that transferred to spend his senior year at Oregon, that I've heard good things about, and that I really just want to see him get his chance. I want to see him, and especially at this point in the season, maybe, with 2 losses, it is the right time to move to a new quarterback. Maybe it's too much to move to a new quarterback with the Washington game, being a big game and being so far into the season already to make this kind of a change. But I just want to see Anthony Brown get his chance. I mean, he came to Oregon to play quarterback, and I'm ready to see him. I'm ready to see him go out and really play and just see what he has compared to Tyler Shuck. I just want to see it. But that's nothing to do with Tyler Shuck either. I don't think he's the problem.
Yeah, FQ Oregon. Are you talking about DJ James, the cornerback, or are you talking about DJ Johnson, the tight end? Because
Yeah, DJ Johnson's the one that's the tight end.
Yeah, DJ James, he's the cornerback that goes in for Diamondor Lanier when he subs out. Yeah, and honestly, you saw some throws from Shuck where you're like, this guy, he looks great. You saw how he hit Johnny Johnson that wheel route. He hit Travis Dye on that same wheel route, same area of the field. But then other times it seems like he's just missing throws, and either I don't know if it's on the receivers not running the right route. I don't know if it's him not knowing where the receivers are going to be. I don't know if it was Cal's corners actually bumping them off of their routes, because Cal corners, they've been great all season, and they stepped up this game. They really did, especially in that second half when they need it. And that you saw in the last play of Oregon's offense, where they made Jalen Red fumble the ball, or was it Johnny Johnson. That was Oregon's DBs right there. They made that play. They made the hit. So they did great all season, and you saw it affect Chuck and receivers in the second half.
It's been a weird heartbreak to watch what happened to Oregon's offense. This is an offense that scored 35 in the first game, scored, I believe, 47 or 49 in the second game, scored 41 points against UCLA, scored 35 or 38 points, something like that, against Oregon State. I mean, racking up points. And they were right on pace again. 17 in the first half. The offense had a good first half with a really incredible drive at the very end of the first half again. And it looked like another one of those really great games for the offense. And then in the second half, you have 7 drives where Oregon football gets the ball and they score nothing on 7 opportunities. And just a cold streak and a slump unlike we've seen this season. And it came at the worst possible time for Oregon, because if any one of those 7 drives they could find the end zone, then they wouldn't have lost this game against Cal. And the offense has been so reliable all season. And now in back-to-back games, you've seen the offense pretty much fall asleep at the end of the game. And that, again, goes back to leadership, and that needs to be on Tyler Shuck's shoulders as well, because he's struggling with back-to-back games where Tyler Shuck has had the opportunity to win the game. I mean, this is 2 games where Oregon fans would have expected Justin Herbert to lead a game-winning drive, right? And he did that. He did that in the Rose Bowl. He did that against Washington State. Justin Herbert has these signature moments of leading game-winning drives, and Tyler Shuck has now had 2 opportunities to give his team the victory by marching the Oregon team down the field with all these weapons around him, and it's been a failure twice now. So it's a really rough thing to see what Oregon has done in the clutch, I guess, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and both times it was Shuck turning over the ball, and even at the end, that wasn't on Shuck. That was on Johnny Johnson. We know it was hard for him. You saw it, how he was reacting on the sidelines. He knew immediately that he just fumbled away Oregon's chances at winning the game. But even before that, with 8:47 left in the fourth quarter, Shuck, he was trying to fight for an extra yard where there was no way that he's going to get it, and you just saw all these Cal defenders just game tackling, just punched it out of him, and then they fumbled the ball, and that's where it really kind of went downhill for Oregon. Luckily, the defense stepped up. That's one story that I want to kind of touch up on, is the defense. They stepped up after not doing anything for the rest of the season. And Michael, just tell me, what do you think about especially the D line, who had, I think, about 4 sacks when they didn't even have 4 sacks all season?
Yeah, the defensive line, and I guess that is one thing that should be a storyline of this game, is that the defense had its best game of the season, Stanford, obviously, they held Stanford to only 14 points, so that was technically their best game of the season, but they still let Stanford run all over them. I think defensively against Cal, they needed to get big stops multiple times at the end of that game, and they just kept getting stops, whether it was a fourth down stop, whether it was a forcing a 3-and-out. You saw that Oregon defense really hold up steadfast, and you saw them finally start to chase the quarterback a little bit with Kayvon Thibodeau having back-to-back good weeks. Noah Sewell continuing to be a wrecking ball out there. I mean, just a beast, especially for a true freshman. It really
Yeah,
is
we hope
impressive
he
just to see
recovers
him.
because you saw
Uh,
him get helped off the field with that hand injury. I don't know. Chris Paul said it might have been a stinger, but we hope to see him next week against UW.
Yeah, Noah Sewell, I mean, this is the second time that we've seen him beat up, but it's just kind of the way he plays, and that's why he's doing so well. Every time I see him make a big play, I'm just astounded that he's on a team full of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and he's on this defense all by himself as the true freshman, and yet he's the star of this defense with all over the field making big plays. So it was an improvement for Oregon defensively, and just kind of like a weird twist for Oregon fans to then have the offense have its worst half of the season at the worst possible time. And Izzy, that'll lead us into our next topic, talking about how Oregon's moving forward this season after this.
Yeah, like what does this season mean for the Ducks? I mean, last year they were Pac-12 champions, Rose Bowl winners, and now you're looking at it where they might not even go to the Pac-12 championship game. They have to beat UW. They have to beat this UW team, and then they either have to play Colorado or USC in the Pac-12 championship game. And a Rose Bowl is already like it's off the table. Am I correct, Michael?
Yeah, so the Rose Bowl, as far as repeating that off the table, because that's a college football playoff semifinal. We knew that last week. Right now, Oregon is actually lucky, very lucky, to still have a chance to repeat as Pac-12 champions.
Yeah.
They hold their destiny in their own hands with 2 weeks left in two games. If they can really pull together and go 2-0, then Oregon ends up as defending Pac-12 champions again, back-to-back seasons, and that is a very successful turnaround for Oregon, and that is very much possible still for Oregon. Unfortunately for them, they do have to play in that Pac-12 championship game on the road. It will probably be in LA facing USC. It could be in Boulder facing Colorado, which I would be hyped for that. I mean, just Colorado hosting a Pac-12 championship game would be amazing and very Pac-12, very 2020. But they're blessed, and I mean, Oregon is blessed to still be in this hunt because last week, Washington should have been crowned the Pac-12 North champion. This game should be inconsequential, if not for the fact that while Oregon lost, so did Washington in their loss to Stanford, and they are no longer undefeated. And both of these teams of the Pac-12 North, in classic Pac-12 fashion, lose their games as favorites, and now you've got Oregon State having an opportunity, although they lost, and now they're out of the hunt as well. So it's just down to Washington State as a very outside chance. Washington and Oregon, for the most part, the Washington-Oregon game is still for the Pac-12 North. You know, it's almost like you can pretend they both took care of their games last week and won, even though they both lost. So, Izzy, it is the lowest point for Oregon right now. They're going to be outside the top 25 for the first time in a couple of years, I believe. This is the first time they've lost back-to-back games since 2018. Undoubtedly, the low point here for Oregon. But this season is just 2 wins away from still being a total success.
Well, success is it's weird how you define it because, yes, having back-to-back Pac-12 championship game titles, it's great, but then you look back at it where you could have been in the Rose Bowl or even in the college football playoffs, and it's kind of disappointing. Like, the bar was set really high for Oregon this year. I mean, Rose Bowl, Pac-12 championship at the least, then Rose Bowl, maybe a college football playoff appearance, and now they're just scraping for a Pac-12 championship an appearance, Michael. So, I mean, this is going to be a season of reflection for Cristobal and all these players because this team, they're really young, they're high recruits, so they should be come back. They're going to come back hungry next year, but they have to finish off the season strong. They can't be they've The defense played well. The offense has been playing well all season, and so now all they need to do these next 2 games is just put it together, put a great game plan, have great practices to where they can put it all together and win 2 straight games after losing 2 back-to-back games on the road.
Oregon has to do something that I haven't seen them do this season, and it's a sign of this season being an off season, is that they haven't put 4 good quarters together. They really have not played 4 solid quarters. They've always had a part of a game where they've just been off and they've just been struggling. And as we talk about this Ducks team moving forward, I do think we need to talk about Mario Cristobal and this coaching staff, because of course Oregon Twitter and the Oregon fan base is very much in this sort of crisis about, okay, well, Mario's clearly not a good coach, or something needs to be changed with the coaching staff, and we got to put a stop to that, Izzy. We gotta make a correction here, because Mario Cristobal is still the right man to be the head coach at Oregon. I love both the coordinators that Oregon has still. I think this is an excellent coaching staff that is doing the best they can with an insanely young team. I wish somebody told me this at the beginning of the year, Izzy, just how young this Oregon squad is, because they are among the youngest teams in the entire country. So of course they're going to have struggles like this. Of course they're going to have a problem with leadership. And of course this is going to be a down season for them. The fact of the matter is that Mario Cristobal recruited some incredibly talented players, and he's catching a lot of flack for, oh, you recruited all this talent, but you're not coaching it well, or they're not performing. And you know what? They're still sophomores and freshmen. These Mario Cristobal recruiting classes are just all sophomores and freshmen right now. And this is just one of those years that is going to be a little bit of a step back to take 2 or 3 huge steps forward in the coming years.
Yeah, you look at it next year. I mean, next year and the year after, it's going to be the culmination of what Cristobal has done for the program. You talk about the titles that he has, the players that he's brought in, all the wins that he's had, the culture that he's changed for Oregon. These next 2 years, they're going to be really telling of what he's truly done for the program. And you look at, I know, Michael, you said it. I don't know why I refuted you. This is going to be a stagnation year. It's not going to be a year of going up to Pac-12 or to the college football playoffs. It's going to be a year where they maybe repeat, maybe go to this Rose Bowl, but it looks like they're just going to repeat as Pac-12 champions. So, and then you have to think about the pressure that all these players have, because imagine losing. They essentially lost 2 classes. They lost the senior class from last year going into the draft, and then with all these opt-outs too. Oregon, they've lost a lot of players. 2 classes basically, and they're really young, and they've had really high expectations for them. So with all the pressure that's been going on around them, with the media, by their coaches, by other teams in the Pac-12, they've done great. They just need to do better these next 2 games, and I'm hoping that they will.
Yeah, I think they're going to improve in the next couple of games. But the fact of the matter is that part of Mario Cristobal's job is taking this heat and taking a lot of flack from fans and from media for 2 brutally disappointing losses. Not just losses against good teams, but losses against not so good teams. Oregon State definitely doing all right this season. I got to give them credit, but it's just the rivalry game. So of course you're going to get a lot of stuff for losing that game. And then you lose to 0-3 Cal. Like, this is absolutely a low point for Oregon, but there's nobody else that I want leading the Oregon Ducks than Mario Cristobal. And it's just the fact that he is the right man for this job, the same way that Tyler Shuck is the right guy to be a future quarterback for Oregon. From what you've seen, it's just got to be a learning experience for everyone. And
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting, Izzy, to see how this team responds to back-to-back losses, whether this is something that they need an entire offseason to work on, or whether you're actually going to see this team sort of come alive as we head into the final week of the regular season.
Yeah, I think this whole season is just a learning experience for them, because you saw Tyler Shuck's face in the press conference after the game. He looked like he got just hit by a train. Like, he just looked completely out of it, and he was still being really good to the media, answering all the questions, not being rude or anything. And he kind of said it perfectly. They had a great week of practice, and they thought that just because they had a great week of practice, they could bounce back. now that's learning experience. Now they need to know, and they know now that they need to have a great week of practice and then actually execute what they did in practice and the game plan from the coaches to have a good game and to actually win the game. So I'm excited to see what they do against UW. And that brings us to our last topic of the show today is how will Oregon do against this UW team?
Well, I haven't seen the newest AP poll rankings. I know for sure that this is going to be a matchup between unranked teams. And who would have thought with Oregon, number 10, which by the way, another thing too is Oregon got so much false hope from being number 10 in the preseason rankings and number
I
10
was just
for the
thinking about
first
that
few weeks.
yesterday.
Yeah, I mean that's just tragic now that you look at it in hindsight. To be so wrong, and that's okay. I mean, we are wrong about how good these teams are. You got to watch them play first. And so last week it was going to be a ranked matchup between Oregon and Washington. They were both going to take care of business, and it was going to be a nice ranked matchup between the two. And now you've got a complete Pac-12 stinker between two unranked teams. I do believe even on the road, Washington might be favored because Oregon is in such a slide and in so much of a tailspin, while Washington looked, I guess, a little bit better last week. I mean, it's hard because they also lost to a not so good team, but so I think Washington is still going to be the slight favorite here. They've earned it by being a little bit better in the first 5 games of the season, I guess. But it's going to be an interesting game between two teams that are not hitting their ceilings at all. They're definitely whiffing on their potential quite a bit. The good news for Oregon is they're back in Eugene, and they are going to play better in Eugene. It's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this game was gonna be like, okay, this is gonna decide like who's gonna be in the Pac-12 championship. I thought it was gonna be a lot more hype because yes, it's still that same game where whoever wins is going to be in the Pac-12 championship game, but it does not have the same type of hype at all because, like you mentioned, there are gonna be two unranked teams in the Pac-12 playing against each other. No one likes to watch unranked Pac-12 teams play against each other. But it's essentially still the same game. The only difference is that they have more losses than initially thought. I mean, actually, I thought that Washington would actually have a loss going into the game, so I was right about that. But I did not think that Oregon would have two back-to-back losses to an Oregon State and a Cal game who hadn't won a game before beating Oregon. So I'm just excited to see how they bounce back, what the defense does, what does Tyler Shuck do if CJ Verdell actually gets more inside the game plan because he did not touch the ball a single time in the first quarter. It was a Travis Dye show, and he did amazing. But Oregon needs CJ Verdell on the field to have a chance at this game because he's the feature back. He's the guy. He's the number one back. He's the guy who can put 100 rushing yards, two TDs on teams. But if he's not getting the touches and if he's not healthy, then he can't do that.
Yeah, CJ Verdell is one of those guys that it feels like he has a minor injury every week. And I don't want to nag on him for being injury prone, but he kind of has big games. And then in other games, he disappears for a couple quarters. And you're always just like, oh, where did CJ Verdell go? He got another one of his injuries. It just seems like something happens every other week that he'll be held out with a little injury that he sustains. And that's tough because you know that it's not the season Verdell has wanted. Verdell, I believe, had 7 or 9 yards on 6 carries last week. It was a terrible game for CJ Verdell. Lucky for Oregon, they are loaded with running backs, and Travis Dye had an insane game. Like, he was the MVP for Oregon last week. And the good news is that Oregon is going to be okay, and they're going to be able to win without CJ Verdell. But obviously, they're in a much, much better place if CJ Verdell is laying it down for 100 rushing yards, which we've seen him do a lot before. I also want to touch on the wide receivers because, it's still a team of weapons for Tyler Shuck. I mean, from Jalen Red to Johnny Johnson III, you see Micah Pittman finally getting on the field after 2 weeks of not playing due to something we'll never know about what it was. He was held out for two
I think you
games,
know
and
what it is,
Micah
Mike.
Pittman was back. Go for it.
It was probably COVID contract tracing. I know they didn't really talk about it, but then you also saw that Devon Williams, he went off those 2 games where Michael Pittman wasn't playing, And then this game, Devon Williams was nowhere to be seen. So I want to see, like, I don't know what's happening. Obviously, they're not being as transparent about what's going on with COVID and everything. But I would love to see a game where we see Johnny Johnson III, Jalen Red, Micah Pittman, Devon Williams, all playing the same game and have a healthy CJ Verdell. Because if you have every one of your single weapons healthy, that's going to make it so much easier on Chuck, because then the run game's going to be going, and then that's when he can make those passes where he throws it over the top of the defense for those easy 30, 40-yard plus touchdown plays that he loves to make.
Yeah, Izzy, one quick question for you is let's talk about Tyler Shuck. I mean, Tyler definitely had his worst half and had his worst game of the season. If Tyler Shuck comes out in this UW game and struggles, maybe makes another turnover, is maybe a couple 3-and-outs, how quickly do you think Mario's going to pull the plug and go to someone else besides Tyler Shuck? And how quickly, what's your opinion? How fast would you, I guess, give up on Tyler Shuck if it's a real tough start for him in this UW game?
I mean, I'd honestly wait till halftime. See what he does the first half. If he doesn't do good at all, maybe he gets a touchdown, but maybe the other team's still leading. Maybe he gets 2 touchdowns. Honestly, I just put in Anthony Brown in the second half just to see what he can do. I mean, he's a senior. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has no more years of eligibility left. Like, give the guy a shot. Like, he did really good at Boston College. Give him at least a half. See what he can do in a half. It's the last game of the regular season. Maybe he can win the game for Oregon so they can get that Pac-12 championship appearance. But yeah, honestly, I just wait till halftime. I know all season I want Anthony Brown to be the starter, but honestly, I'd wait till halftime. I wouldn't do it after the first drive. I wouldn't do it after the first quarter. I just wait till halftime and then I'd put in Anthony Brown and be like, okay, what can you do for us? Can you win us the game? Is there a reason why we benched you? Like, prove us wrong why we benched you.
Yeah, as much as I just want to say, start Anthony Brown, get him in there. Tyler Shuck deserves that vote of confidence, and I think this is going to be a bounce back game for him. I think personally, and we're going to get into predictions here, I think the Pac 12 is so dumb, Oregon's going to find a way to win this game anyway. And I think Oregon's offense is going to make a full recovery and score 30 or more points. So I think this is going to be a game for Oregon where offensively they're able to drop 30, and the defense is going to do just enough to squeeze out the win. It's not going to be a great game for Oregon's defense. So that means Tyler Shuck stays in the whole game if Oregon's offense goes back to rolling. If it's struggling, then like I said, I think it is that first half belongs to Tyler. And then the moment there's an interception or a 3-and-out in that second half, I think you're going to see Anthony Brown finally get his chance. And especially if there's an okay first half, but the game is on the line, and you're seeing the same exact thing that you've seen the last 2 weeks, Izzy, which is Tyler Shuck gets the ball and does nothing with it. It's time to just give Anthony Brown, his Tua moment.
But yeah, definitely. I like to see what they do if they put. I just want to see Anthony Brown play. Like, he deserves it. I mean, he's a senior. He literally could have gone anywhere. I don't know why he went to Oregon, and I don't know why Oregon tried to recruit him, because they have their depth chart at the QB position is like 6 players deep. So I'm just baffled at why he would go there and why they would allow him to go there. I mean, as a coach, I would imagine you would think, me like, yeah, kid, you don't have a chance of starting here. Just go somewhere else. Like, we really like you, but you're not going to start here. You're just going to waste your last season. So I'm just baffled at that.
Yep. I'll let you wrap it up, Izzy, but we're not going to be 3-3 next week. I will tell you that.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, so we do columns for Pac-12, sportspac12.com. Make sure to check those out for most of the Dash Sports shows. And thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And also follow us at Dash Sports TV on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. And also check out our website too. It has all the other Dash Sports shows, has our clips and everything, has our bios at dashsports.tv. And make sure to catch our weekly shows Sundays at 1. Hopefully we'll get a few more shows in. Hopefully they beat Washington. Hopefully we make that Pac-12 championship appearance. Thank you again for tuning in.